Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to take a presentation on the topic History of Psychology, presenting by Akash Leon, Alan Thomas, and Adarsh Varghese. First of all, let me tell you what psychology is. Psychology is derived from two words, that is psych and logos. Here psych means mind and logos means study. So together it means study of mind. Psychology refers to the study of mental activity and behavior, or else we can say study of ourselves. Introduction to History of Psychology. No one knows actually origin of psychology. For some they say that it is in ancient Greece, and for some it is when it was formally introduced as science of psychology. We all know that psychology is an exciting field, and the history about psychology will help us to make sense of how psychology has grown and developed. The history of psychology provides perspective rather than names and dates. Also tell us the important intersection of time and place that defines who we are. Importance of history cannot be overstated in defining who we are. If we are seeing a physician, counselor or apply for a job, usually everyone asks for a history. Like the same, for studying psychology, it's very important to know the history of the field, and that help us to make sense of where we are and how we got here. Prehistory of psychology. Empiricism is promoted by pioneers of psychology such as John Locke and Thomas Reid. Empiricism gave the idea that knowledge comes from the experience, which was not common at that time. This taught about mind based intellects, will, and senses. Physiology and psychophysics. Philosophy questions about the nature of mind and knowledge which were matched by physiological investigation when a German scientist named Hermann von Helmholtz measured the speed of neural impulse that indicated that our sense can deceive us. In all, it suggested that study of psychology was feasible. Relationship between the mental and the material was investigated by a number of German researchers including Ernst Weber and Gustav Fechner. Their work was called psychophysics. William Wundt established first psychological laboratory. He is also known as father of modern psychology. After the opening of Wundt's lab in 1879, it just took 4 years for the first psychology laboratory to open in the United States. Scientific psychology comes to United States. A student of Wundt, that is Titchener, found the field of structuralism in psychology. Structuralist believes that human mind is functioned by combining objective sensation and subjective feeling. According to him, mind was made up of thoughts, experience, emotions, and other basic elements. In order to study this, student in his laboratory used to think objectively, and this process was known as objective introspection. The goal was to identify elements of consciousness. The work demonstrated that the mind could be revealed through scientific means. This proposition found a great deal of interest in America.
Hello, my name is Adarsh and I'll be taking you through functional psychology. So while Techno was busy with his structural psychology, there was another person, William James, who was one of the most respected personality in Harvard at that time, who didn't agree with his viewpoint. He believed that psychology can be functional. Along with him, he had likes of Stanley Hall and James McKean Cattell. According to the functional psychologist, consciousness was continuous, and this theory helped us in achieving other important and much more interesting studies such as comparative psychology among animals. Then there was Mary White Calkins, who is one of the most inspiring story in history of psychology. She was rejected her diploma by Harvard just because she was a woman, but her dreams did come true when she was first elected women president of American Psychological Association in 1905. Stanley Hall founded first laboratory of psychology in America in 1883. He created first journal in psychology for America. It was nearly impossible for any African American man to become a PhD in psychology, but Hall mentored Francis, who went on to become first African American to earn his PhD in psychology. James McIntyre was one of the few individuals who believed that intelligence could be inherited or measured using some kind of mental test. He believed that if we identify people with superior intelligence and ask them to reproduce, it would be serving the society. His beliefs were widely associated with term called eugenics.
Hello everyone, I am Akash. I am going to talk about the growth of psychology. Psychology flourished in the US during the 20th century. It was large enough to accommodate varying points of view on the nature of mind and behavior. Gestalt psychology came into existence in the 20th century with the work of Max Wertheimer, which provided the foundation for the modern study of perception. The word Gestalt is used in modern German to mean the way a thing has been placed or put together. In psychology, the word is often interpreted as pattern or configuration. The Gestalt movement in Germany opposed reduction approach. Gestalt theory emphasizes that the whole of anything is greater than its parts. For example, when you look at a photograph, you look at the whole image and not just the color and pixel. The Gestalt psychologist proposed that the mind processes information simultaneously rather than sequentially. Behaviorism. Behaviorism came in during the 20th century. Behaviorism is primarily concerned with observable behavior as opposed to internal events like thinking. An obvious advantage of behaviorism is its ability to define behavior clearly and to measure changes in behavior. Behaviorism went on to dominate psychology in the US for decades as it was meant to predict behavior. Russian psychologist Ivan Pavlov influenced early behaviorism in the US. His classical conditioning theory provided support for the notion that learning and behavior were controlled by events in the environment and could be explained with no reference to mind or consciousness. According to the law of parsimony, the fewer assumptions a theory makes, the better and the more credible it is. Behaviorism therefore looks for simple explanations of human behavior from a very scientific standpoint. The limitations of behaviorism led to the introduction of the constructive mind theory by Frederick Bartlett. The idea of constructive mind recognizes that people use their past experiences to construct their behavior. The research of the flashbulb memory by the American psychologist Brown and Miller's research on working memory supports the constructive mind theory. Constructive means that human beings are future oriented and flexibly adaptive to new circumstances. At the same time, computer science was growing and it was used to explore and understand how mind works. Applied psychology is a field that focuses on putting practical research into action. It focuses on the implementation of real world results over abstract theories and lab based experiments. It was applied in many areas like business, industry, education, and military. There are many prominent names in the field of applied psychology. The Gilbreths are the most popular among them. Frank and Lillian Gilbreth promoted the use of time and motion studies to improve efficiency in industry. They worked towards workspace psychology. Clinical psychology is a psychological specialty that provides continuing and comprehensive mental and behavioral healthcare for individuals and families, consultation to agencies and communities, training, education, and supervision and research based practice. The scope of clinical psychology encompasses all ages, multiple diversities, and varied systems. Leitner Whitmer is credited as the father of both clinical and school psychology.
At the beginning, psychology as a profession didn't have any standards, as a result of which anyone without proper training could attain or could take on the term psychologist. As the result, American Association of Applied Psychology (AAP) and American Psychology Association, that is APA, was formed. During World War II, there was a huge shortage for mental health professionals, which led to merger of AAP and APA to focus on training of psychologists. Due to these efforts, there was a conference in Boulder in 1949 and conference in Vail in 1973, which helped in launching three kinds of psychological practitioner. One was scientist practitioner, the second was scholar practitioner, and third was doctorate in psychology. Psychology has played an important part in developing us as a society. Scholars like Helen Thompson and Letta Hollingworth have studied psychology of sex difference in the workplace. Mamie Clark and her husband Kenneth Clark studied psychology of race segregation and how it negatively impacts young African American kids in their schooling life. In 1957, Evelyn Hooker, a Psychologists published the paper which proved that there is no difference in psychological adjustment between a heterosexual and a homosexual man. So you see, psychology has come a long way since it was first coined. It has developed us as a society and helped us getting rid of various social evil in our country as well in West. The psychology we know today might sound simplistic to you, but it is not as simple as it sounds. With this, me, Adarsh, Akash, and Alan would like to thank you for listening to us so patiently. It up to you guys. If you have any kind of questions for us, please go ahead and please feel free to ask. Thank you.